Why do toadstools grow so close together?
Why?
They don't need mushroom.
Mushroom.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast, where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from theredparty.com. This week, we're talking about truffles.
Truffles? I love truffles.
Not the chocolate
so
kind.
Chocolatey and good.
Not the chocolatey kind.
Oh.
The fungus kind.
All right.
Let's talk about it. Sharon, it's been a long time since we've podcasted.
It's been a long time for us.
It's been a long time for us.
We recorded some episodes that dropped in September, and we recorded those a little while before September.
Yeah.
And we've been off. And I am having a good week this week because I got to see you.
I know. I got to see you too. I'm excited. If you didn't know, Lee and I have been in Italy, northern Italy specifically.
Fancy.
We were pretty fancy and it was delightful. We were gone for a couple of weeks and it was, you know how some people go to countries such as Italy for like, I'm going there for like, 'cause I'm an art buff or a history buff.
Right.
We were there because we were food buffs.
You food buffed it up.
We totally did. We ate everything.
Which is awesome.
It was great. Did you eat anything fun this week?
Probably not anything nearly as good as you ate this week.
Well, we did eat a lot of good stuff. But what did you have?
I made chicken tikka masala again from the Pinch of Yum recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say that I froze my masala paste.
Like they recommended?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little bit skeptical of it because I just put it in a Tupperware container in my freezer and didn't really take any great,
measures to like put an extra layer of saran wrap or something.
I didn't put it in a baggie. I just put it in the small 2-cup Tupperware or 2-cup Rubbermaid container.
Yeah.
And threw it in. And I scooped it out like ice cream and it was a huge win.
Really?
Yes.
Super easy.
Super easy. Although I will recommend that she uses a 1/4 cup of the paste in her recipe.
Tomato paste? Oh, the paste.
Masala paste that you make. I use about 1/2 cup.
Oh, okay.
Just for a little bit more kickety kick.
You want more of the curry flavor.
More of the restaurant spice profile. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
So that froze really well. I was shocked.
So I'll put a link in the show notes if you guys didn't see it earlier for the paste part, especially.
Yeah. And it was perfect when I cooked it up in my Red Lodge enameled cast iron skillet. Mm-hmm. It was perfect. I mean, straight from the freezer into the pan and there wasn't any additional like freezer crystals or anything like that on there. Just the consistency of it. It froze up really well and worked out.
How long was it in the freezer?
It's probably been 2-3 weeks.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Maybe 3 weeks. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Did you
super excited
that? I'm going to have to try that one. I still have not gotten around to it.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to making a Parmesan crusted chicken tonight, actually, for the family.
Excellent. I love some Parmesan.
I do too.
The crust though is not just Parmesan, right? Is there some breadcrumbs or something?
It's Parmesan.
It's all Parmesan.
Yeah, and then you just pan fry it, and then on a pretty high heat, and so it cooks up pretty quickly.
And how thick are these chicken?
So it's a pieces? Rachel Ray recipe because I'm all about meals in 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, and she's kind of known for that.
Yeah. And this looked like a recipe that everybody would eat, bar the tomatoes. So I'm just putting the tomatoes on mine and Ike's pieces. It's kind of like a caprese is what it ends up being. Without the mozzarella, instead have Parmesan.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm excited for it. But she just said chicken breasts, but we have pretty thick ones. And so we're just going to
cut them in half.
Cut them through the middle. So yeah, it's more like a cutlet.
When you fry cheese, it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, the picture, it's all golden brown and everything. Yes. So I'm pretty sure I can get it like that.
Yeah, I think you can with Parmesan.
I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah, that's going to be good. And then it'll be kind of crunchy from the frying and the fat. Yeah. I think it's going to be a winner.
So what did you eat this week?
Okay, well, we've been gone for a long time. And we were kind of discussing like, oh, maybe we should do an episode specifically about all the things we ate in Italy.
Probably.
But this week, we had some of our friends in from out of town, and we went up to a little place called Bistro 412.
Is that where you met your other friend from out of town?
Yeah, it was pretty.
That you almost had dinner with?
No, we didn't have dinner with. So
I'm sure Lee invited him.
He did. So we were just up in Park City, Utah. And if you're ever in Utah, go up to Park City. It's just a cool little
Drop us a line. We'll meet you up there.
Yeah, a little cool mountain ski town. And we were coming down the street, and Lee and I were just standing there waiting for our friends because they were in another store. And this black sedan kind of pulls up, and somebody comes out of it, and he had a white cowboy hat on. And
oh, he was wearing, yeah, that's right. He was wearing a white one.
He was wearing a white cowboy hat.
He's a good guy.
And Lee was about to make fun of him. And so,
of course he was.
Well, because he just looked out of place, trying too hard in Park City, Utah, and stuff like that. Like, oh, I'm a tourist kind of a thing. Well, it turns out Lee spied this guy's profile, and he said loud enough to me and I was like 5 or 6 feet away with Lucy, and he's like, Winter, I think that was Kevin Costner. And the guy was halfway across the street, and I was like, really? Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I think that's Kevin Costner. And so we were just watching him. He crossed the street because this is Main Street. He crossed Main Street, which is not very large. You know that. I mean, it takes just a handful of steps, really. And he walks up to this restaurant, Bistro 412, on Main Street in Park City. And I'll leave a link in the show notes. He gets to the door. He pushes, he has his hand on the door handle. He turns around, looks over his shoulder, and he smiles and waves at us. Like he was acknowledging, yes, I am Kevin Costner. So Lee's like, oh. And so we scurried across the road also, and our friends joined us. And we're standing outside of the restaurant, not like on the little patio area, but down on the kind of on the sidewalk.
Are you looking in the windows with your faces pressed up to the glass?
He was actually sitting in the area where you could press your face up into the glass if you wanted to. But we're just standing there waiting for our friends, and we tell them.
So you're trying to be cool at this point.
I'm super embarrassed because I'm so bad at I'm not really good at fangirling. I admire people for their work and admire people from afar. But when we met Ree Drummond of the Pioneer Woman, I was like, she's really cool. I really admire all the stuff she's done. I like her cookbook. But I don't know what to talk to her about because she has her own life. I have my own life. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be chummy with her. She's met a bazillion people today. So, I'm just terrible at fangirling. Terrible. So
also, side note, people, Lee is not.
He's not.
Lee's not terrible. We have another story where he met Elvis Costello and Lucy was in her pajamas.
Her bear pajamas.
And he invited him to come sit with us at a concert.
It's pretty awesome. That was pretty
Lee's
funny.
good at fangirling.
He
fanboying.
Yeah.
Whatever it would be called.
So Lee walks up to the restaurant, and he goes inside to the restaurant and peeks around the corner to see if it's really him. And he comes out and he's like, Winter, it's Kevin Costner. I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And of course, this entire time he's walked in front of the bay of windows that Kevin Costner can look out on, and has seen this weirdo. Seen Lee at least come back once and back. And so, and we're all like, should we eat here? We haven't eaten dinner yet. Maybe we should eat here. It was 5 o'clock, 5:30.
Did Kevin Costner unwittingly lead you to the most expensive restaurant in town?
No, it was not that expensive, actually. Okay. So everybody agreed, and I was like, I'm not good at this. I really like him. I love Prince of Thieves. I love Dances with Wolves. I love Field of Dreams. I'm like totally listing off all his movies he's done. I totally, and he just barely did, I think it's his last movie that he just did was Hidden Figures. Mm-hmm. And I loved him in that. And he was really good in that. So I'm just like, yeah, okay, I guess. And I'm totally embarrassed. But we all go in, and our friend, they're like, oh, do you want to sit in a booth or at a table? And my friend's like, a table? Because that's where Kevin Costner is. It's where the tables are at.
Nice.
And so we go sit down. And everybody's kind of like trying really hard to act cool because he really is like across the way. It's just he's like 5 feet away from us kind of a thing. And
so now you're stalking him and he's scared of you.
Yeah, a little. And we're all just like, oh man, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. But then he breaks the tension and he says, well, I just want to say, I don't want you guys to be disappointed, but the food is good here. He was basically saying, I know you guys came in here only because of me.
Awesome.
But he vouched for their food and it was really good. So I had their drunk mussel. So it was done in a white wine sauce, and that was really good with their shoestring fries. Those were really good. But Lee had their bison meatloaf.
Oh, yummy.
And that was really tasty. It was super filling, really, really tasty. And then the things that I thought were super outstanding, though, were the appetizers we got. One of them was this mushroom. It was like a mushroom sauce, a creamy mushroom sauce over a savory French toast. I don't know how to explain it. And then there was like dollops of goat cheese on top. And it was so good.
So they kind of tried to do... Well, I guess that's not a French onion because she had mushrooms. That's yummy, though.
It was super yummy. And then we had some blistered Brussels sprouts, and those were delicious. So if you do get, I like with Kevin Costner vouching for it, Bistro 412 was really tasty. That's what he ate this week.
So come on up during the Sundance Film Festival in January, and you'll see even more celebrities.
Yep, exactly, because it always happens that way.
And now for the main course.
Okay, let's get down to our first topic at hand. Truffles.
Truffles. Not the chocolate truffles, Sharon.
What?
I know. It's a bummer. I do love a good chocolate truffle.
Well, can I just say something about the chocolate truffle?
Yes, please do.
The chocolate truffle gets its name because the original truffles were cocoa coated and a little misshapen.
Mm-hmm.
And so they resembled the famous and rare fungus of the same name.
Yes. So I kind of like that. I think it's so fun. And chocolate truffles are delicious. But we're going to talk a little bit about truffles, the fungus, the misshapen fungus.
The fungus among us.
Yeah. And I think I suggested this topic because we had spent a good chunk of time while we were in Italy in the Piedmont region.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
they're known for truffles.
They are. In fact, the cheese festival we went to, they only have it twice a year, once every 2 years is what I meant to say. They are just, I think, 50 kilometers away from Alba.
Oh, yes.
Which is kind of the white truffle capital of the world, I would say. So, and we were just a month off because in October is when things kind of, you can start harvesting those white truffles in that region. So, and while we were in Italy, we ate a lot of black truffles. Like it was kind of a common thing. Like, would you like some truffles on that? I mean, you're going to pay for it, but they would shave.
How much extra was it to get a truffle shaved on it?
I actually don't know how much it was. I should have asked Lee because he was the one that was like always settling the bill.
Oh, right.
But yeah, they would always, I think some of them were included because it would be like truffles with a steak or whatever it happened to be. But so I wanted to talk about truffles because I don't know a ton about truffles.
So I don't know a ton about truffles either. And I think it's really funny because I have found truffles and not known what they were before.
You have?
And
where?
Before now. Before like this last week. I had no idea what they were.
Oh.
So for a couple of years, I lived in the Seattle suburbs.
Yes.
And they have truffles in the Pacific Northwest.
They do, which I was a little surprised about, actually.
They are not as strong as the Italian and French truffles, but they do grow them there. And, they're hard to grow, I guess. They're harvested, I guess, there.
Yes.
Is what you could say, because they are so forested and it's really rainy there. So the climate is very conducive to truffles.
Funguses and like mushrooms.
Yes, so many mushrooms. Yeah. We'd find them hiking all the time and just in people's yards. There'd be those really pretty colorful toadstools, the red and white spots.
Yeah.
Really cool. but I used to do volunteer work at the Lake Sammamish State Park.
Oh.
So it's right outside of Seattle, just in Bellevue there. There's Lake Sammamish, and it's really gorgeous and very forested in the park area. And we would do like trail clearing and different types of things like that. And so I had a shovel and I would have to dig lots of things, dig around trees and
just to
like
clear paths and such.
And I would dig up truffles every once in a while and I wouldn't know what they were. I thought they were dung, like some type of a dropping that had been covered over and things, because that's a little bit what they look like.
Yes.
And it's not quite far off base what they smell like.
Yes.
Alex Gornishelli of the Food Network. She said that the smell resembles a locker room.
Yes.
And I quite agree. Quite agree. But I never knew what they were. I didn't know, because I mean, they're usually several inches down.
Yeah, it's not
6
right on
inches or so into the soil, maybe 8 inches. And so I was like, well, this isn't fresh. I don't know how it got here. Is it some type of a weird seed? I had no idea, but they're big and lumpy, you know? And so I just had no idea what they were.
You were kind of, so Sharon kind of held up her hand and she kind of gave about a small apple size, maybe even to a walnut, as small as a walnut.
Small as a walnut, and then like apple-ish size.
It can be apple-ish size. That is kind of cool, Sharon.
I had no idea what they were until now.
That is hilarious. I'm glad.
So I have found truffles.
I am so glad that we talked about this now.
And they stink.
And they stink like a locker room. Everybody. So just really quickly, what is a truffle? So it's a fruiting body, and it's a below the earth fungus.
They grow about 6 inches to 12 inches into the soil. And
it's usually from one particular species of the genus tuber. And they are considered, and I'm probably not gonna say this correctly, but they're ectomycorrhizal fungi. So basically mycorrhizal means kind of it's basically a symbiotic relationship that forms between the fungus and plants. So they usually are at the base of trees, and the fungi colonize the root system of those host plants, and which is kind of nice because it increases the water that goes to the tree, and it helps with basically helping nutrients get absorbed better, while the plant provides the fungus with carbohydrates formed by photosynthesis. So that's basically what it is. It's kind of this fruiting body, but it's subterranean. A lot of, I think of funguses like when you see mushrooms, they pop out of the ground.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the way you usually see it. So that's what they are. I want to kind of go over, if it's okay with you, Sharon, is to talk about what types of what types of truffles there are. So when we talk further about hunting for them and stuff like that, we can kind of differentiate.
Yeah, really quickly, they grow in symbiosis with trees, but only specific types of trees.
What trees are those?
So they're generally oaks, hazels, or lindens.
Okay.
Sometimes you can find them with beech. Sometimes you can find them with pecan. The pecan truffles are different than a white or a black truffle, though.
Yes. So let's really quickly, the black truffle is kind of the most, I think people kind of see that one as the most. So they're also called the black Périgord truffle, and it's named after the Périgord region in France. And that's why, and these ones specifically grow on oak and hazelnut trees. So, and those ones are harvested late autumn, winter time. And like I said, those ones are the ones that kind of look like the dung because they're black.
Yeah.
They've got a rough edge to them. And when you cut into it, it looks, I don't know how to explain it. It kind of looks like a brain to me. Like there's all these like...
It looks like connective fibers or channels or something like that.
But it's really dense. It's like super, because some mushrooms can be really airy, but these ones are super, I feel like they're kind of denser.
Right.
Now there's the summer or burgundy truffle, and it's called the black summer truffle. It's found across Europe. It is once again used in culinary places, but the burgundy truffle are harvested in autumn and until December or so, and they have a very very aromatic. I would say that I think these ones are a little bit more aromatic. So now the white truffle this is the one that you want to eat.
And this is the be all end all of the truffle world.
Yes. And these ones are these are the ones where I was in, like I said, we were in the Piedmont region, or the Piedmonte region in northern Italy. And it's in the countryside of like Alba and Asti. All of those areas, they are known for this, and they have festivals, and it's usually starts in October, goes till about December. I've seen reports of going into even January. So now there have been other places that can find other white truffles. Now, in fact, the largest truffle in the world was found near Croatia, and it weighed 1.31 kilograms, which it translates to 2 pounds, 14 ounces or so. And so that was the largest truffle.
For a single truffle.
Yes, exactly. So, which is crazy. And these are the ones that are paler in color. They are, like I said, pale cream, brownish,
off-white to a beige. Yeah.
And these ones are the ones that I think people talk about really smelling like a locker room, because
they're even more distinctive in their smell.
Yes. And I've read a lot of things where they talk about, because I've never had a white truffle. I've had a lot of black truffles or some of these Perigord truffles while I was in Italy. But these ones are the ones that are harder to find, because you really can only find them in this one region. Mostly, those are the ones that everybody's like, these are the ones that you want to get. Like, there's some in other places, but really, let's be honest, the Longa region, or the Piedmontese region in Italy, is where it's at. So the highest price for a truffle was a record was set in 2007. A casino owner from Macau was. Did you read that?
I did read that.
So Stanley Ho, he paid $330,000 for a white truffle that was 3.3 pounds. And that was kind of the highest he had ever been paid before for one single truffle, I think. So it's crazy. That's a lot. And I was thinking about it, I was like, if it was found, because we can talk about freshness, but from what it sounds like, once it's harvested,
you have to get rid of it pretty quick.
Yep.
You have to consume it within a few days.
Yeah. If you want it to be fully aroma, taste.
If you want to get the fullness of the truffle. Otherwise, if you wait more than about a week, it's almost tasteless.
Yeah, which is kind of a bummer. You're going to lose the aroma, which is, I think everybody talks about the smell. Like, that is the thing that really adds to the taste as well. So there is that. There is a whitish truffle.
Whitish?
A whitish truffle. And it can be found in different regions of Italy. So Tuscany, Abruzzo, Romagna, Umbria, Molise, and such. So they're close to the white, the mother white truffle. And then there's other species, and you've mentioned some of these already. So in the Pacific Northwest, they have some that are harvested, the Oregon black truffle, the Oregon spring white. They also have the Oregon winter white truffle, the Oregon brown truffle. And then you mentioned the pecan truffle.
Yeah.
Which is a little different, but that's in the southern United States, and they are usually symbiotic with pecan trees, which I thought was really interesting. So, and I really kind of thought that was fun, because I really only thought of white and black. There's way more types than I was expecting there to be.
Yeah, me too. I was reading in the Flavor Bible. Shout out to Karen and Andrew of the Flavor Bible, the authors. They have a quote in here from Jerry Tronfeld of Woodinville, Washington's The Herb Farm. And he talks about Pacific Northwest truffles. And he says, the Northwest truffles are very good for what they are. What they are not is French or Italian truffles, which are stronger. Northwest truffles pair really well with celery root puree, and we serve a ravioli filled with celery root and an egg yolk. The egg yolk is raw when the ravioli is cooked, and when it is served, the dish is topped with butter and shaved truffle.
Ooh.
The white truffles are milder than the black in the Pacific Northwest.
The version.
He especially likes them with seafood like shellfish or crab, especially. And they also work well with root vegetables and potatoes. And he said that the Pacific Northwest black truffles are a little funkier and work well with red meats and game birds.
Oh, okay. So there's ones that are a little bit, makes sense to almost pair together.
Right.
So the funkiness can help stand up to kind of
the funky game bird.
Yeah.
Like a turkey, like a wild turkey or something like that. But I think the most, when I was reading through about truffles and researching the different types and how they're prepared and made, I thought it was really interesting that it's more of an accompaniment than anything else.
It is. Yeah. It's like a topper. It's like let me give you a little something more.
I saw that Mario Batali liked them best on top of buttered noodles with Parmesan.
You know what? That's one thing I've noticed is that they always talked about like the white, especially the white truffle. It is really good in a butter-based sauce or whatever, not like versus the olive oil. You know how there's a lot of olive oil dishes and stuff like that in southern Italy. Like in the Piedmont region, they have specifically butter. Like it's butter helps with the taste.
Rich taste of the earthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I would probably say that was true in all the dishes that we had, and they offered us truffles. It seemed to pair well with something that was a little bit on the creamier side of things. So it was good. So I'm wondering, this is what I've wondered before, because you can cultivate mushrooms.
See, I didn't know that. Now, Harold McGee talks a little bit about truffles, but I was quite surprised because when you think about truffles, it's a very exotic ingredient.
It is.
It's very popular.
It's very prized.
And so he only gives a few paragraphs in his book on food and cooking. He only gives a few paragraphs dedicated to truffles. And
that's a little surprising, actually.
So I thought it was interesting because maybe it's a commentary on maybe his like or dislike of them. / mostly dislike. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting because, like, you know, on some more basic ingredients like eggs or potatoes or something like that, he can wax poetic. But truffles, it was just really very short basic and informative.
But I can see. So the thing is,
but he said that when he was talking about how they grow, they grow basically in a forest, and you can either. But he said that you could plant the forest.
Yes.
And it takes about at least a decade for these to come to fruition.
Exactly.
But he didn't really go into any depth about that. So do you know more about the cultivation?
I do. Okay. So this is the thing that I was a little surprised about because I thought truffles were not, you could not cultivate those and produce anything commercially.
They're just kind of magically.
Yes.
there.
I really kind of have had this like thought that truffles, you could not, they were magical. They would I heard a myth of how truffles were made, or like
God likes the French and Italians the best. And so they get the truffles.
Yes. That was no, just kidding. One of them was truffles appear where the moonlight has hit the ground. Like a full moon light. Have you heard that? Something similar?
I heard the Romans believed that truffles grew where lightning had struck the ground.
Oh, well, okay. That one's a fun one too. So there is so domestication of the truffle has kind of been tricky. However, it's French. I'm sorry, you guys. So whoever would like to correct me, that's totally fine. Jean Thelme Brillat Savarin. Oh my gosh, that was pretty bad.
I don't even know what that was supposed to be spelled like.
Yeah. Sorry. In 1825, he said, the most learned men have sought to ascertain the secret and fancied they discovered the seed. Their promises, however, were vain, and no planting was ever followed by a harvest. This perhaps is all right, for as one of the great values of truffles is their dearness. Perhaps they would be less highly esteemed if they were cheaper.
Oh, wow.
It's totally true though, right? So they can be cultivated, however. So in 1808, there were some successful attempts to cultivate truffles in France. And so so they did observe that truffles grew at the roots of certain trees. We know that, right?
Yeah.
Joseph Talon in 1808, and he was from southern France. He had the idea of transplanting some of the seedlings that were kind of in that same area where he had seen truffles before.
Okay.
So he did that.
Makes sense.
And he transplanted them, and later he was able to kind of get something from them. So that's kind of when they realized that there was this, it's not just, they realized that the plant, the tree had something to do with it. So there was another gentleman he His name is Pierre Malion.
Okay.
I'm so sorry,
Pierre
you guys.
and Jean.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is Pierre.
He began to cultivate truffles in 1790 because he saw that symbiosis between those oak trees. And also, they've also noted the soil. The soil has to kind of be a little bit rockier.
Oh, really?
And at least in this region of France.
Okay.
When the newly grown oak trees had grown years later, that's when he noticed that truffles were growing in those not newly transplanted, but the trees he had transplanted 10 years later.
Okay.
So yes, and then there's other experiments where people did the same thing. So they started doing these. It kind of was a perfect storm of things that happened. So there was a couple of things that really decimated different crops and types of things in France. And so there was actually quite a bit of open areas. So that there was a lot of people that actually planted trees to do truffles instead. Because there was no, an epidemic killed off some silkworms, another epidemic killed off phylloxera in a vineyard. And so there was just places to plant stuff. And so that's what they did. So in 1890, there were about 75,000 hectares of truffle producing trees.
Wow.
So now, because I was like, well, why don't you hear more about truffles then? If this was such a huge deal back in the day. Well, the 20th century came around and then we ran into a couple of problems. First of all, France got more industrialized. And so more people moved away from the farms or from rural areas. And so you lost out on that kind of workforce. And then the First World War came along.
Oh.
Killed off 20% of the male workforce.
And all of the land.
Yeah. And there was a lot of this new we've done this. We've figured out how to cultivate truffles kind of was lost in all of that. So, and then, and the truffle groves that were planted in the 19th century stopped being productive because the life cycle of a particular truffle producing tree is really only 30 years. So
interesting.
So they first lost, they lost the workforce. They lost the people with the, kind of the know-how to do it. And then these trees that kind of were doing what they were supposed to be doing kind of were done. And so they needed to have started another set of trees to keep it up. So by 1945 or so,
they're pretty rare again.
Yep, exactly. And so now there's people that are starting to do a little bit more of this cultivization in the UK, United States, like you mentioned, in the Pacific Northwest, Spain, Sweden, New Zealand, and Australia are pretty big, actually.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. They have quite a few trees, and because they have a lot of land, I think, and probably the climate. Chile and South Africa are kind of known for that as well. So, but it does take 7 to 10 years, like you mentioned, to cultivate them. And probably closer to 10 years if you want to have a commercial stock. Because you have to build that network between the roots and the fungus in order to do what you need to do. And that is really mostly the black truffle, right? Kind of, from what I understand, they still have not figured out how to cultivate the white truffle, from what I understand.
Yeah, what I was reading, it was all about the black truffles.
So I think it's interesting how much, because of the scarcity, that's what makes it so prized and valued and not hipster.
No, but it's popular. Like the supply is not very much and the demand is high. And so the cost drives up, and that's part of the popularity too. There's a lot of celebrities that love truffles.
Yes.
Jay-Z. So
is he all about it?
He is all about it. And some people in the industry thought, he can do for truffles what he did for Cristal champagne.
Oh.
And so P. Diddy is another person who is known for, I read an article in The Atlantic, hilarious, where he demanded that this chef in New York City, this French chef is very renowned.
Yeah, Chef Leland, was it?
Yeah, I think so. And he demanded that he shave this bleep on his plate, onto his plate.
Yeah.
So just kind of funny, like these celebrities are all about it. And you see like food trends. You've seen a lot of the truffle fries, and even in our small region in Intermountain West, where we have a lot of truffle fries around here.
Yep.
But at the same time, how I've eaten those, and while they are, I guess you could consider them pricey, they're not as pricey as like an actual dish with truffles in it.
Yeah.
And so I found out though that most of the places around here, at least, that are making truffle fries are doing it with truffle oil.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, you guys, not from a truffle.
You didn't, exactly.
It's all truffle oil. And some people are like, oh, well, you don't have the real thing. There is no real thing that they're making the truffle oil with.
Yeah.
It's not like a nut that you can compress and extract oil from. They're just trying to mimic the aroma.
Yes. And I kind of geek out over this because I was like, that's pretty good that they were able to kind of mimic this chemically.
Right.
It's mostly, and it is mostly olive oil, and it's been artificially flavored using a synthetic agent, and it's 2,4-dithiopentane.
Right.
That's what the chemical is that is giving you that same funky flavor, aroma, taste.
But they'll
in truffle
also
oil.
use that in combination with real truffles. And so sometimes, and just a little of the oil can go a long way when you're, especially when you're using it with a real truffle. Supposedly, I don't know because I've not had them, but some restaurants will use it in conjunction with an actual truffles. And so it makes me wonder if those truffles are maybe past their prime.
Oh,
maybe their supplier, it did get held up in customs.
Yeah.
Or maybe they bought too much and so they need to kind of enhance it. Or if they just really want to kick up that flavor.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that, but that totally makes sense because we've talked about this already, that you kind of have to, once you harvest it, you need to use it probably for the full aroma and
within the week.
Yes,
within days.
Yeah, within, like, I think people have said, I watched this one chef and she said 5 days. That's kind of you're going to get the best flavor and aroma from it.
And they work so hard to store them because, like, if it gets wet, like a really common thing to store it with is rice. So because if it gets wet, it starts to break down.
Yes. So when we were over in Italy, I asked them, I was like, so if you ever found a truffle, what would you do? They said, well, you would keep it in rice, and then you would take the rice and make it into truffle rice because
it's still getting some of that aroma and stuff into it. So like you want to keep it maybe a risotto rice.
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of like and then they said we would shave some of it on and then we would put it into this other thing. I mean, like they were going to use this truffle,
the whole thing.
So like it was such a dear food product to them, even the Italians. I was really surprised at how like carefully they prized it as well. And so
I've heard people use the outer casing or the outer shell of it in soups.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting because the outside is seemed a little bit woodier. Whenever they would shave it onto our whatever we were eating, that kind of the woodiness on the outside was always shaved onto it. But I have heard sometimes they would take the casing, put it into more sauces and other things so that kind of
breaks down
or is not as prevalent but the flavor is there, and then the kind of the meatier, fleshier part is on whatever you're shaving it on. And can we talk about how truffles are found? Because you found truffles in a random way.
I did. I was digging with a shovel.
Exactly.
I didn't even mean to.
Yeah. I think finding truffles is so interesting because when I heard about this was like you are walking around with a hog or a pig.
Yeah, you have a sow is used. So typically sows were outlawed, pigs were outlawed for finding truffles in 1985.
Why? Okay, well, why did they use pigs in the first place? Female?
They used a sow, a female pig, because the scent of the truffle is a really good mimic to the testosterone of a male pig that he lets off when he is going to mate. And so they use the female pig to seek out these truffles that are underground. And pigs have a very sensitive nose to that. Yeah. So they used sows to do that, but it became problematic because pigs eat everything and they would also eat these truffles and would have a hard time giving them up.
Yeah. And same thing with, they would also destroy whatever else.
Yeah. So with the truffles, when you harvest them, sometimes the truffle, and I'm not sure how you tell, but the harvesters can tell. I think they're called truffle cultivators or something like that.
I always call them a truffle hunters. That's what they kind of called them in Italy.
But these truffle hunters can know if the truffle is ready or not. And so if it's not ready, they kind of bury it back down.
They just cover it back up.
But when the pigs would seek it out, they would dig with their hooves and stuff like that. But they kind of ruin the earth all around it.
And the mycelia, the network of fungus, right?
Right. Because it kind of goes from tree to tree and everything like that. And so that whole area could be ripe with truffles. But if the pig ruins the ground, it's going to ruin the rest of the truffles.
Yeah. So 1985, huh?
Yeah, so they outlawed the sows in 1985, and now they use dogs.
So one thing about the dog, so I did ask one of our, this kid that we were staying at his family's house, and we're like, so truffle hunting, huh? He's like, because he had a couple of dogs. He's like, you should train them. And he's like, oh no, that's too tough, because that's really hard, because you basically have to have your dog trained and addicted to truffles. You feed them truffles so that they can find it. They want to find it, so they're addicted to it. So you give them just a little bit and they go find it, but you have to catch them before they get to it and eat it themselves. So same thing as the pigs. They would eat the truffle before they got there. They do have a good sense of smell. Dogs do, obviously. But you do have to train them. And it sounded like you had to.
It sounded difficult and expensive to train them.
Yes.
Because I read about a lot of hunters using actual pieces of Parmigiano Reggiano to treat their dogs with once they find the truffles.
Just to be like, hey,
to distract them from the truffles so they can get the truffle. But like, they also have to give the dog something that's of a similar flavor. Now, I'm not saying that truffles taste like cheese, but it's got that earthy and flavor to it a little bit. If you're using like the rich, original kind of stuff.
I just thought that was interesting. And I did read an article about a woman who wanted to go truffle hunting. And most truffle hunters, like serious truffle hunters, because you can obviously, quote unquote, take a tour and, pay somebody to take you truffle hunting. But the ones that are serious, they work alone. And they just go and they have to work quick and they have to just watch their dog and they have to follow their dog so fast, basically, because it's not on the leash. They just
they just let it go.
And the dog will go and you have to catch up to the dog if he gets there, because the key is to get there before the dog eats the truffle. And so, it's like, and it's rough. And we've got quite a market here in the United States. In fact, I think we've got quite a bit of a black market, because people go to Italy and they'll like basically smuggle in some truffles in and
not that Winter's ever done that.
No, I've not done anything like that ever, because that would totally can you imagine trying to smuggle a truffle into the United States and you have to check, do you have any live products or
I don't know where you'd stick
stuffs and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah. But there is quite it's quite a business here. In fact, I loved listening to this episode on NPR and on Planet Money, and I'll put a link in the show notes. It's called A Trunk Full of Truffles. And Daniel Pashman of the Forkful podcast, which is great. He follows somebody that he arranges for truffles to be shipped, and then is
he a smuggler?
No, he's not. He's not a smuggler. He gets it legitimately.
So he's a supplier.
He's a supplier, but then he has to he gets them, and then his time starts ticking.
Well, yeah, because these are fresh.
Yep. And so once that happens, he needs to he's getting parking tickets because
TikTok. You've got to double park that stuff and just pay later.
Exactly. And so, it was so interesting. So if you get a chance to listen to that episode, it's so interesting. So, but yeah, truffles. I'm curious to know if anybody has tried black truffles. Have you tried any white truffles? I have not tried white truffles, and I'd love to at some point in time, but I know that they are very rare.
I haven't had any truffles. I've had truffle salt, which I know is actually made with
truffles. Yes, I think that's correct.
And so it's kind of salty, earthy.
Yeah.
So, but that's my only and then finding these mysterious things in the ground that I had no idea.
I'm a little bummed that you didn't know what they were, because then you could have...
I'm way bummed. But this was like years and years ago.
Years ago. But now I'm like curious to be like, oh, we should go and volunteer.
Yeah.
Do a little digging.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. So if anybody has tried white truffles, I'd love to hear what you think about them. Do you like them? Do you like that funky smelling aroma they have? I thought the flavor works best when it is in like a butter or a sauce. But I really did like them, and I think Lee liked them too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is a segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, food fight, food fight. The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
Winter, do you have this week's question?
I do, and I think I can relate to this person.
Oh, really?
I do. Yeah. Okay. So this is what she says. So she says, "Hi, Sharon and Winter," and she says a couple of other things, but her question is, I've been invited to a dinner party that I know will be quote unquote fancy. I'm not a quote unquote fancy person, so I know I'll be out of my element. And I think I'll be miserable because I'll be worrying about etiquette and which fork to use, etc. Do you have any pointers so I don't look like a total barbarian? Thanks. Talking with a full mouth. So I feel I can totally relate, because I don't consider myself a fancy person. And there's been times when I've been to dinner parties or work parties and it's the full spread, all of the knives and forks and glasses and plates. And it's a lot.
It is a lot. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there at a dinner party at somebody's house, and then a few like really fancy places that I'm like, oh, I don't belong here. I think they might kick me out.
And those places usually require like you need to wear a suit coat, and you are wearing a dress if you're a girl, and
right. And so I've been really intimidated. I'm like, oh, are they going to like feel the material of this dress? Do they know that I pair it with sneakers sometimes? Like, oh, it's nerve-wracking.
Okay, so basic etiquette. What are your thoughts on table etiquette?
So don't put your arms on the table. I have a hard time doing that because I speak with my hands a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And so I'll put my elbows on the table and just rest them there. But you're not really supposed to. You know, we remind the boys at home. Mm-hmm. We call it a lapkin and not a napkin, because the lapkin lives in your lap.
Yeah. So they don't touch it at all, is what you're saying.
Sometimes. So
they just leave it on the table.
They just leave it on the table. Oh. So don't leave your napkin on the table. But some of these fancy places, it'll be on your plate.
Yeah. So you have to
remove it. But I'm not going to starch my napkins and make a swan out of them for dinner on Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what I learned in etiquette classes, you know, when you were younger, they always had these etiquette dinners. Did they have
at church? Yes, yeah. At church, because they wanted us to be like, to not be heathens,
to not be barbarians at the table. But I think if you have series of forks and knives,
you go outside in.
Yep, you just work outside in. So you probably have a salad fork on the outside, and then you have kind of a longer fork, probably for an entree, that type of thing. You just move in. Yeah. So I mean, I think fancy dinners are starting to not be as prevalent. I don't know. Maybe we're not in that.
No, I think that's true, because I think it is true that formal dining isn't prevalent as much anymore. Mm-hmm. You see all of these fast casual is what they're touted to be, all these fast casual restaurants.
And where you can pick up your food, and fast casual is pick up your food and go sit down, and but it's nice. It's kind of a little nicer,
and sometimes they will still have those like heavy silverware and cloth napkins and things like that. But even when you go out to a restaurant that isn't necessarily classified as fast casual, you still see people in t-shirts and jeans. Mm-hmm. You know, if you go to a steakhouse or some of the popular chain restaurants and things like that, even though some of them aren't usually classified, well, I don't know, there's still a broad spectrum of that fast casual.
There really is.
But, you know, it's not so much anymore like it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago where you could get kicked out for a dress code violation or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know how this person is, what type of dinner party this is, if it's a business something or another, or if she's going to like an acquaintance's home.
Or meeting the in-laws for the first time.
Yeah, see, that's pretty scary. So I can see you wanting to be up on the etiquette, but really it's not too difficult. Just don't chew with your mouth open.
Yeah, I think don't chew with your mouth open. Don't work from the outside in on your silverware. Put your napkin in your lap. And really take social cues from other people at the table.
Yes, watch.
Because most of the people that you're going to be with either openly or secretly feel the same way that you do. I don't really know very many people that are so formal anymore.
Yes.
So I mean, maybe I just don't know fancy people. Maybe you know fancy people. Talking with your mouth open or a full mouth. But typically, even if you do know fancy people, they are happy to let you kind of take their, have them take the lead.
Exactly.
And you can follow their cues.
Yeah. That's kind of a good
on
way to do
it. On how to, cut your meat or something like that. Like, don't cut the entire thing up
from the beginning.
Right. Just take a bite at a time, that type of a thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good resources online too. But I think just following the people at your table is really helpful.
Yes, I think that's good. And then I think one of the things that helps those kind of dinner parties that may be a little on the fancy side is kind of brushing up on your chit-chatting skills. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, that will go miles.
Yes, so you may be fumbling with like, which knife to use and whatever. But if you're telling a good lively story or engaging people around you, that is always very helpful because people just want to engage. I think that's the point of a dinner party, right? And so
I think strong conversation skills are much more important than knowing which fork to use.
Yeah. So
honestly, even if you pull like the pretty woman thing where she like throws the, what is it, a clam or something like that she's trying to pry open and it goes flying across the room and like just a random waiter catches it. Even if you do a major faux pas like that, as long as you are a great conversationalist and are really connecting with the people around you, that's going to go way farther for you than just knowing like where your napkin goes and that type of thing.
You're not a total barbarian. I think you're going to be smarter than that. The fact that you are listening
aware.
Aware that you don't want to be that way, then I think that definitely helps. So good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
I think it'll be fun. Just go into it with an open mind and watch what other people are doing. It'll be fun.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today on our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music.
Hey, everybody. Do you want to come and hang out with us sometime? Well, share our podcast with your food nerdy friends and family, and we'll have an episode every single week. And, we have been talking a little bit about changing a few things up and having other people on the podcast. We haven't had an interview for a while, Sharon.
Yeah.
So if you have any awesome ideas of what you'd like to see the podcast, the direction the podcast goes, please let us know and send us a quick email at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Thanks. And join us next week for another episode of Food Nerdery. Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.